Welcome back to another episode of Health is Wealth. And thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. And as always, I am beyond grateful and thankful to each and every one of you who is tuning into today's episode. As every week I am sharing a new episode, just sharing some words and thoughts of hopes, inspiration, and motivation, and hopes that it brings value into your life. You know, just things that I'm thinking about and going through on my own journey on this crazy ride that we call life. So thank you once again for tuning into today's episode. And what I wanted to talk to you a bit about today is this idea of delayed gratification, right? And what it is, and why it's beneficial. And the thing about it, right, is let's start from what is delayed gratification. Perhaps it's a term that you've heard used, especially in the entrepreneurial world. But it's this idea of putting things off, right? Delaying satisfaction, or from having things that we want now and putting them off for later, right? Not satisfaction, satisfaction. I apologize. And so this idea of delaying gratification is really rooted in this idea that the longer we can put something off, the bigger the reward there is at the end of working towards it. And a lot of that comes from, especially in those who are entrepreneurs, how I've seen this is if you're willing to delay gratification, you're pretty much trading off the things you might want now for the things that you do want most. And a lot of people who have succeeded as entrepreneurs, who became very successful, there was a lot that they attributed to delaying gratification that allowed them, in the future to have succeeded so much. Because a lot of what it looks like is delaying that instant, satisfaction of things to work for something bigger and better and more. So that's the idea of what delaying gratification means. And, there's not inherently anything bad if we don't. It just depends the kind of lifestyle you want to live and what you want now versus what you want later. And this is one thing that, I myself constantly think about, because it is hard. We live in such a society where we want our things now, right? Like we want our cake now. We want to eat our cake now. And, we don't like this idea of thinking have to put off stuff later to enjoy it when we all want to enjoy it now. And so it can be very tricky to delay gratification, especially when we're such in an on-demand, instant, we want it now kind of way of living. That's just the way it is, nowadays. But I really do see that superpower and that benefit behind us delaying gratification. Because again, it comes down to, this trade-off. Instead of having that thing that you might want now, if you could just hold off for a bit, hold off for a little while, and continue to work towards the thing, then the payoff is having something much bigger, something much more worth it, something nicer as the end result. And that's why you see entrepreneurs who really succeed in life, that's what it took for them to have maybe these bigger lifestyles, a more lavish lifestyle, a more successful lifestyle, was because they delayed gratification. They put off the things that they might have wanted in the moment for bigger things that they wanted in the future. And I think in order for us to become successful in life, me talking out loud to myself here, it's something we've got to learn how to do. And there's just no way around it. Now, again, there's really nothing inherently bad about not delaying gratification. It really just comes down to what do we want, and I think that, again, is another trade-off here. You can either enjoy something bigger or better later, or you can enjoy the things that you want to enjoy now and maybe not have bigger and better later, right? And not say you couldn't, but, inherently there's this idea that, you enjoy some of the stuff that you want now, but it might not leave room for more or bigger or more worth it in the future. And it really just depends on what you want, And I'll be honest, this is something I personally struggle with, is delaying gratification in the sense of that, because it is very hard. And one thing that I personally find is as you get older, I just had a 40th birthday, it becomes a little bit more difficult, because you have sometimes one side of you that knows and believes and wants more and sees more in the future and sees bigger and has a bigger vision in the future. But then you have the side of you that it's like, you've lived a lot of life already. I've spent so many years of work, and I've spent so many years going through it. I spent so many years doing this and that. And so oftentimes you feel like, if you keep working and working and working, at what point can you really enjoy it? So like me personally, I find myself in that struggle, in that battle of, I want the bigger and more because I believe there's more. I believe God's got a vision for me to achieve more. But then there's this other reality that lives within me that says, well, you are 40, do you think you're going to make it to 50 or 60 to enjoy other things if you delayed gratification? If I work so hard for all the, things that I've worked for, and let's say I've got 5 years to live, I'd want to be able to enjoy some of it now, or else what's the point too? And so there's definitely this in-between between a rock and a hard place that I personally live in, with trying to do that and trying to do this, And I think for me, I'm trying to find a little bit of a balance, right? I try not to go too much over into one end of not delaying gratification. But at the same time, I do recognize that, hey, I am getting older, and I should be able to enjoy some of it on that way up, or else what if I don't have the 10 years more or 20 years more to enjoy it? Then I only got a few, and all I did was delay gratification and enjoy any of it. Then what would have been any of the point at all? But, again, delaying gratification itself is really just this ability for us to put things off in the moment for something worthwhile, better, or more in the future. And I really see how people who have succeeded has used this as a way to excel them, to become as successful as they did. And I completely get it. It's not easy, though, for sure. It's definitely a struggle. Like I said, something I personally struggle with, and I'm trying to get better at, and I'm trying to work my way through it. But it can be hard, especially if you're someone who wants a bigger lifestyle. You look at entrepreneurs, you look at what they have, you look at the abundance of life that they live, And sometimes delaying gratification makes you feel like everybody else around you is achieving all these things, and you're kind of stuck here, maybe not having so much fun, maybe not spending so much time, or so much money on things, spending more of your time working kind of, not really like in solitude or anything like that, but just really kind of putting your head down and focusing while other people are out there enjoying. And so oftentimes it feels like you're that kid inside the house, and you see everybody out, the other kids out in the front yard playing around and having fun and enjoying life, and you're just like, I want to be doing that. So there's this trade-off to delaying gratification, though, and that's part of the price to pay for what it is. But when you see people who are entrepreneurs, who are successful, delaying gratification doesn't necessarily mean forever. It just means for a little while. And the price to pay to achieve the bigger and more and the things that are worth it in life, I think it's that pain and of going through the process of holding off on things. Because usually what that does, for you, delaying gratification, is allows you to focus on the goal, that you're wanting to achieve, and continuing to work on it, and not allowing things to distract you, right? That's how people who get successful and become entrepreneurs really did do a lot of it. Is, as they were trying to figure out ways to make money, to become successful, they had to put off things, say no to this, say no to spending on that. Maybe they wanted to buy this thing, they really wanted that, but, they held off on it. And there's so many things that comes to how delaying gratification works. But in essence, it's just really pausing the things, that we might want for, now in the moment, for bigger and more in the future. And I really believe if we can get good at this, that's one of the big things, that get people to that point of becoming successful is that ability to say no now, but to say yes to something else later. And something we should all really, aim to try to get better at. Like I said myself, I'm definitely not perfect at this. I understand that, being a lot better at this, you can get a lot further. You can get to where you want to go a lot quicker because you're eliminating anything that can hold you back, slow you down, or delay you, so you can get from your starting point to, the ending point of the result even quicker. And a lot of what that looks like, people, especially entrepreneurs, is from getting of a lifestyle, where they're not making much money, don't have much freedom, don't have many nice things in the world in life, to the point to where they do have that lifestyle, where they have a life full of abundance, where they've got financial and freedom, security, and all of those things. But what it took to get from point A to point B was just that, delaying gratification, Instead of spending money on things that they really wanted, they continued to reinvest into themselves, into the things that was accumulating more money or building or growing them or whatever it is. And so if it's something that we can get better at, I think we can really get beyond, where we are at to where we want to be a lot quicker, and I think it's one of those things that has to happen, if that is the goal in mind, right? Like, again, I don't think it's a matter of right or wrong. It's just, what do you want? I myself do want that bigger lifestyle. I myself do want a lifestyle of abundance and financial security and freedom security, Like I said, it is difficult because as you do get older, you struggle between having that and wanting to enjoy what you've worked so hard for so many years to enjoy now. And I try to find a little balance in this, Try not to go overboard with things, but do try to enjoy things as I'm climbing to that next level, to that next top. Because if in 5 years I'm out of here and God's calling me home to heaven, and that's it, I want to make sure I can enjoy some of it at least, and not any of it, because at the same time, what was any of the point of working if I couldn't enjoy any of it? So delaying gratification, it is definitely a skill I believe we should all learn, a skill we should all try to get better at, and a skill that I truly believe that will get us from point A to point B of wherever we are at to success, whatever that might look at in anything that we do. And, I think it's that ability to train ourselves to delay gratification, to not constantly have these impulse things, is that superpower behind the benefits that get someone from a level of where they're at, maybe 1 or 2, to like a level 10 of life and enjoyment and abundance in lifestyle, is because when we can hold off on things and we're not in a rush to get the things, it only leaves room for us to get better, for us to improve, for us to grow, for us to work towards more and bigger and better in the future. And it's a day-by-day process, and you're not always going to get it right. Like I said, myself, I personally do struggle with this. And I honestly admit that because I do want to get better at it, right? Like I said, my struggle is just coming from maybe the age factor to where it's like, I do want that lifestyle. I want more. I want bigger. But I am older. So, there's a side of me that says I should be able to enjoy some of it, and I try to find my ways to balance it out, But it is a struggle. It is very hard, I constantly, in my own head, think about this to like, okay, if there's certain things I want or want to go buy or want to go do, I ask myself, okay, if I do want this thing, and it, it's something I want now, I have to just know that it might be me saying yes to this thing and then no to something else later, or, have to accept some of that as the reality. And so I constantly try to choose those battles in my head to be like, what things, am I okay saying yes to right now that I'm okay with? And what things do I know I need to tell myself and try to tell myself no to, because I know it can hinder, it could slow down, it can delay the process and the progress from the bigger things that I want to enjoy. Because the bigger things I personally want to enjoy in life, it's not just about me improving my own life quality, but because I know delaying that gratification and achieving those bigger and more worth it things in the future, it's about the people who I care about. about, my loved ones, my family, people around me, and what they can enjoy if I'm willing to delay the things right now for the bigger things in the future. And that's all it is a trade-off, So delaying gratification, something that I think can really enhance and progress us for sure to that next level, if we can learn how to do it. And that's what takes, it looks like, for those who are entrepreneurs and successful to have gotten from the place where they're at to where they got to, was by doing that thing. So just wanted to share maybe some words on that, because again, it is something that I struggle with in my own journey right now. And I do try and rein myself in all the time. And a lot of that too for me looks like, what do I really want and what do I need, and what things, do I really want now and what things do I want most? And these are a lot of the trade-offs and the questions that I personally run through and ask myself as maybe some impulse things kind of try to jump out me, or, maybe I get excited about doing something or want something. And so I have to ask myself, is this going to be something I could trade off to be like, I accept having that now, but it might mean I can't have something more? Is this thing going to slow me down, pull me back, or delay my progress or process? But also keep it in mind that, life is also about having fun. It is about enjoying things. And there's certain things, I don't want to completely just do away with in my life or delay my gratification from in life, because if 10 years doesn't come, and 5 years is all I got left, then I'm trying to find a balance between to be able to enjoy some things in life, but still work to that next level of life. So delaying gratification is something that, if we can learn it and we can be it and be better disciplined at it, I really think in a lot of things in life, that's just a missing component. It really is, and I think if it's something we can really get better at, then it's something that can really excel us to that next level. Something I am always constantly working on. And I think a good way to do this, as I think about it, you hear a lot of people who are successful talking about it, is writing down goals. Writing down what matters to you most. I think sometimes if we have something physically to revisit to, then we can re-reference things that are on our minds to be like, okay, I can have this now, or I can have more of that now later. And it's like that old test, that you hear, it was like a Harvard study test or whatever, and the two kids, we've all heard that marshmallow test where they put like a couple kids in the room and they told them both, here, we'll give you this one marshmallow. You can have that now, but if you can wait, we're going to come back. If you can wait so many minutes, when we come back, you can have two. Or more, or whatever it was. And that's essentially what delaying gratification looks like. You can either have that one marshmallow now, but if you can wait while you're working, while you're growing, while you're building, while you're improving, while you're getting better, then there's only going to be room for more in the future. And I personally do want that second marshmallow, It's okay to have that one marshmallow now if that's what you want in life. But I think there's a lot of people who want that second marshmallow, but the only way to get there is to delay gratification. And it all starts with that. It's really, what do you want now versus what do you want most? So thank you all so much once again for tuning in to another episode, and we will see you on the next one.